spot. But one of those new hires that we brought in this year who has just gone above and beyond, is taking on any job that comes about, is regularly in our gym classes, subbing for wellness. He's quickly approaching his 120 days, and I'm feeling a little devastated about it, but that is something that we're up against. Additionally, we had hired and the board approved the hiring of a permanent guest teacher who unfortunately found a different position that was closer to kind of the path that he sees himself on. Last thing I wanted to talk about is, and I'll have you kind of share maybe the sub job and how they accept. When we don't have a sub and we've exhausted all of our efforts to attempt to bring in a guest teacher, we are covering internally. So Trish Reedy, our secretary, and I work to create a spreadsheet where we put in the times that we need coverage, what's happening in the classroom at that time, and then class teachers who have a planned time or are available can sign up internally. So typically like a 30-minute block. I looked back at our sheet, and from September 28th, when we created our first coverage doc, until today, we've had 59 days that have required internal coverage. Today is the 118th day of school, so that's exactly 50% of our days have required some kind of internal coverage. And parents are aware of this because the questions that I get are often, my daughter or son told me that there were 6 different teachers in their classroom today, or 9 different staff members. What is going on? And so this is what is going on. We do have trained professionals in the room, but they are only able to commit to about 30 minutes to come in and support and pick up those plans and carry them forward. That was really some of the statistics and numbers that I wanted to share. We are beyond grateful for the substitutes that come in. The new sub that started today had sort of the gift of time to partner up with one of our subs and learn a little bit about his experiences, and was able to support in some different classrooms. I think it's really nice when that happens, but it isn't always the case. So grateful for all of our guest teachers.
So at the middle school, I can tell you that checking the sub coverage document is the last thing I do at the end of the day and the first thing I do every morning. And we really try and get out ahead of it and get people assigned to those unfilled positions. Much like the elementary school, I would suggest we actually have a little bit more than the 52 that Kelly had mentioned as far as the internal sub document. It works out a little differently at the middle school, in part because our teachers will sign up to come in and help out during their plan time. That plan time is also when they have team meetings twice a week. So on occasion, and today was an example of this, we went ahead and canceled some of our team meetings to free up staff to go ahead and then internal sub. Canceling a team meeting is obviously less than ideal. I know, Kelly and Audrey at the elementary school, also Joe and I at the middle school, will often step in ourselves if there is a vacant position that hasn't been filled. We've got to have somebody in the room. While I love spending that time with kids, there are times when I have to also cancel other obligations in order to make that happen. The other thing that I wanted to mention too is, and I can speak for a lot of the teachers in this district, taking a day either to be caring for a family member, and I should say many of our staff have kids of their own. And as many of our parents have dealt with, even a minor sniffle right now means that they have to be home. As a result, they have to call in sick to school. That's hard to do. It's hard to have to make lesson plans. It's hard to leave your classroom in someone else's hands. And I would tell you that it's even more stressful when they're not sure that position is going to be filled. There's a feeling of guilt that perhaps their absence is creating a burden for other people in the building. And I will also say that our staff has done an amazing job. They work very hard to make sure that no classroom goes uncovered, but nonetheless, there's that feeling of guilt and anxiety that comes along with it if you're a teacher who's unsure of your position being picked up. Much like the elementary school, if we have a 9-period day, teacher teaching 6 classes, it's likely that you'll have 6 different people popping into that classroom to cover. And so, they're folks that are well qualified. They're folks that do a great job. It's a stressor without a doubt. At the middle school, we have 3 regulars. 2 of those are retired teachers. So they're under that same 120-day limit. And actually one of those has been filling in sort of on a long-term basis for one of our teaching assistant positions. The advantage for those retired folks is that the teaching assistant, the non-certified roles, don't count against them in terms of their 120 days. So our retired folks are generally quick to jump on those positions, enabling them to, continue to help out for a longer period of time. So thank you. If you have any questions for either of us, Kelly, are happy to answer them.
I have a couple, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm sure, and this is a number of questions, so compared to previous years, like how would you say it relates? Is it?
This is the worst by far.
Okay.
It's been progressively moving toward that, though. I think over the course of the last, and I can speak from my personal perspective, 15 years, never had to do internal sub covering prior to about the last 5. The last 5, we've been doing that more regularly. The last 2 and 3 have really been the worst as far as just not having a lot of subs available to come in.
Okay, and then my other 2 questions kind of go together. They're not hourly, they're daily subs.
Correct.
When you hire and pay. So then why move them through a classroom, like multiple classrooms through the day? Why don't I am basing this off of when I grew up, we had a sub, it was like the same person in our classroom all day long. So why do they move around? Is it because teachers are doing different things throughout the day?
So when we're internal covering, teachers are still teaching their regular classes. They have 6 classes in a day, and there's 2 plan periods built into that. So those teachers during a plan period at the middle school are stepping in to teach another class, but they only have 2 periods in the day where they can do that. So somebody else has got to come in to cover. Now, the other thing we sometimes do is reassign and shuffle our subs that are there so that they're going to cover another classroom during what would be their plan period. And that can be stressful for a sub who's coming into the building, who's trying to prepare for the class they thought they were going into. Perhaps they picked up a 6th grade social studies position, but 6th grade social studies has planned periods during 8 and 9. And so I'll come to them and say, can you help me out? I need you in 7th grade science period 8 and 9. Okay. And then, so it's a shift. They have to be able to get to the new classroom, review the lesson plans, and be ready to go with something that they didn't necessarily expect to be teaching.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further questions for?
Stressful.
I do want
Sounds
to
stressful.
provide, and thank you both for doing this. And I want to provide a little bit more information too, now that we've kind of heard how this really goes. We haven't talked a lot about it in the last 2 years, because as you recall, when we did the remote platform for the last year, that really actually helped our sub situation a lot, because many of the parent or teachers who had to be home with their own children, or if they were even close contact or not well enough to be able to teach, they could still teach. So we just needed a person to be in the room to supervise. And so that did help us with our sub situation. I also want to bring up that not only do our administrators cover classes, but many times the teachers who are out also have supervision duties for lunchroom or playground or other places. And so they're also picking up cafeteria, playground, all sorts of different duties that happen during the day, because teachers do more than just teach their classrooms. We have worked with our union on this, and, as Nate said, Kelly knows, nobody wants to take a day off, but we all have days that we need to take off. But there is contractually in there a limit on the number of personal day requests that we need to accept. So after 10% of the staff have indicated they'd like a personal day on a particular day, we can start denying that. We haven't done that, or we've tried to avoid doing that in the past. Obviously, if somebody has a need that they need to take a day, we want to try to support them. But this year we have started denying some of those personal day requests. And the union has been understanding, obviously, that's their contractual obligation, and they've been working with us as much as they possibly can. Nate brought up team meetings being canceled. We have deferred professional development for the last 2 years. Many times some of the most effective professional development times is to give a teacher a sub and have them come, or with a team of teachers, to do some work during the school day. We have not been doing that. In fact, we've moved professional development entirely to faculty meetings and early release days. Those are only an hour. An hour of time is not a lot of time to get people together, get into an activity, get something working, and work on that. So, but we have done that. And I do want to just say that while we keep trying to think creatively, the idea, lots of ideas have been thrown around in terms of how we can support our substitutes. Jay's been doing some work investigating some other models and plans that districts have in place about bolstering the actual staff in terms of hiring some additional positions, which would be more like a paraprofessional for a grade level that would be there every day at a certain rate. And then when they needed to fill in for that grade, would be paid at a higher rate. So investigating those opportunities as well, that might create some more consistency for the kids, for the teams in that situation, and then also just give us a built-in staff member, more built-in staff members that can help us with the situation. Obviously, it is not best for kids to have 6 different educators filling in for one teacher throughout the day. We know that, but that is something that everyone is struggling with. And we're really, I think the gist of this presentation is we're working hard. We're trying to be creative. We appreciate the board's support, the volunteering, but also the financial support to help us think a little bit more outside the box and get more subs here and feeling valued and get us in a better position for our students. So,
And I just want to thank Nate and Kelly and the teachers for their flexibility. I was there the other day at the middle school, popped in another classroom. Nate was teaching health. And within the first 5 minutes, there were like 3 other teachers coming in saying, is this covered? Is this good? Are you good? So thank you both, because that's stressful enough on everybody. And then I just wanted to put it out there. Parents are now allowed to be subs, correct?
oh yes, yep. We would love for our parents to apply. Obviously, we need to do all the same employment things that we would do for any new employee in the district. That has been a conversation in the past also here, and not something that we have really embraced, but we are excited if parents want to come and help in that way now. We would love to have them be with us and looking at ways that we can support new substitutes, parents, anybody with training, and obviously
Grandparents?
we would take grandparents. Absolutely. Yeah. Really the biggest issue at that point is just making sure that we have ensured confidentiality and talk through, there are things that we don't talk about, that have to do with students and information that we have on students that we would not want people to be talking about. So really that's the big piece, is other than logistics and figuring out what to do. But notwithstanding that, we would love to have parents and community members come and join us. We really do have an amazing staff that will jump in and help with whatever anybody needs. And it would be great if we could have a bigger pool of people to call.
What are the minimum qualifications for somebody if they're interested?
A college degree.
I
Right?
think they
Yeah.
actually made it an associate's degree.
Is it an associate's now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's recent.
And
Yeah. And the ability to be with kids.
I
And
think it's like a $50.
yeah, it's really,
sub
it's a
license, but
minimal
it's for 5
cost.
years.
And so who do they reach out to? Where do they go to if they want to initiate this process?
So they can come to us and we'll help them with that. But if they want to go directly to the Regional Office of Education, that's where the paperwork and
all
everything
online.
actually happens. So
Can they do it all through you?
we will
Or-
help them, but get to the place where they need to go online.
So is there something online on our website that is a link, or is there a number they call for us in our district, or how do they? I'm trying to help
Did
you
it.
Yes.
out.
There's an
Thank you.
online application. If you click, I think it's just under HR, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that walks you through, but part of it is you have to show your sub license. The sub license you have to do through the
Through that.
Illinois Department of Education.
I just Googled it. So just Google how to get a sub license in Illinois and it pops up.
It's
Okay.
really easy.
The easier we make it, my point
Yeah.
being, the easier.
I
we
like
make it for
that idea
people,
too.
the
We'll
better.
look at our website.
Yeah.
On there. Amy's got to know. I see her.
And I think I would also point out that, because there was some misunderstanding from stories I've heard in the community, our subs are paid. And if you pay attention later in the meeting, it is highly likely that they'll be getting paid a little bit more after, going forward
Mhm.
after tonight.
Yep.
I believe the rate was 105,
It was 110.
110
and
and
Administration is recommending increasing that to $125.
$125. And board members, we have at least three board members that I'm aware of who have subbed extensively, and I wanted to say thank you for going above and beyond. Board members do not get paid anything for that. So that is strictly volunteer for board, and you guys are amazing. And thank you for all that you've done for your schools.
And I mean, when they talk about 6:30 in the morning text, our absences come through all throughout the night. And so when our principals wake up, I know they're checking it before they do almost anything else. And the text comes sometimes right in the morning. So I appreciate that so much.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Any anecdotes from the board members who have subbed?
It's fun.
It's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed seeing the kids in the buildings. It's been a fun experience. I enjoy it.
Been fun on days. My daughter didn't know I was coming because I didn't know I was coming. And then she sees me down the hall. I'm like, big eyes. Why is Zachary here? Yeah. So
Am I in trouble?
We're on our toes.
no, but I just kudos to you. I know it's so stressful to fill staffing right now, and just the rat race that is to make all that, the puzzle that is to put together. So it's not, I know those aren't easy calls to make. So just thanks, anything we can do to support.
And it's good to hear some numbers around it, because that really hits home, I think, for everybody.
It's critical. And if anybody is interested, please reach out.
And to your point, Mark, I will say just publicly, back 2, 3, 4 years ago, when parents wanted to sub and weren't allowed to, there's a lot of complaints about parents not being allowed to sub, and now parents are allowed to sub. We're not seeing applicants. So if you're one of those people, now is the time to really do that. It's
You'd
not
be a great
it's
service
fun,
to your
it's-
community. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions, comments? We're going to move on to item 7C, which is the American Rescue Spending Plan. Mr. Khan's going to talk us through this. So the district received 3 separate allocations of COVID relief funding from. In order to apply for the last round of funding through the American Rescue Plan, a spending plan must be made publicly available, and community feedback on the plan must be sought. The American Rescue Plan is focused on restarting in-person learning and addressing the learning loss caused by the pandemic. So, our Director of Business Services, Mr. Khan, will take us through that.
So there have been many bills passed through the federal government to provide relief to school districts. And the way that those bills work is that they make a grant to the Illinois State Board of Education, and then it's up to the Illinois State Board to sub-grant that out to districts. And there are certain rules that have been put in place for the different funding. The first round was really a reaction to COVID, and it was mostly focused on PPE. There were no restrictions. You could use that money to help basically make your school safe. The second round, as we got further into the pandemic, it was additional, it was more money, and it came with a few strings, but it was not only geared towards making your school building safe, but more towards on learning. How can we help districts support remote learning? And then this third round, the American Rescue Plan, was really focused on getting kids back into in-person learning. So there was a lot of desire to get kids back in school, and then also to help them recover from the learning loss that took place, over the first part of the pandemic, where kids were remote or where schools were closed. So the Illinois State Board of Education allocates this money based on the number of kids, basically our Title I funding, which is based on the number of kids who are identified. It's calculated based on local poverty levels. And so we received, the amount of the money that we received is on our website. I've actually added a whole section under financial information labeled COVID, and it just talks about the money that we've received in grants to support COVID, but also what some of the requirements are, as well as what the district has spent. So it outlines what we've spent these past several years to continue to keep our schools open and our kids safe during the pandemic. One of the requirements of our American Rescue Plan funding, it's also, you'll see it called ESSER 3. It's the educational, I'm gonna have to look it up. I have it in the, I don't remember what it's called, elementary and secondary emergency response plan spending. And then there are 3 rounds. So they labeled them ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. Those are the ISB grants back to the district. One of the requirements is that I post the plan of how we intend to spend this ARP money on our website and seek parent feedback and basically constituent feedback. So teachers, board members, parents. This has been posted on our website. I put a news article on the front page requesting input. We'll also be sending a email, a school messenger out to parents, notifying them where they can find it and then requesting input on the plan. Because it is based on Title I funding, we don't get a lot. There are districts who have received tens of millions of dollars in funding. I think altogether with the 3 rounds, we'll receive about 400,000. And this last round is the biggest round at about $250,000. We've not received any of this money yet. We've received all of the first 2 rounds of grant funding. And basically this money is going to provide the free summer school COVID relief money. It was used to hire an extra school psychologist for social and emotional welfare of our students. And then also a math, it's also was used to hire a math specialist to help support learning loss in math education. And those are the biggest areas of funding. There was a couple smaller ones. I think we purchased some supplies for remote learning, both technology supplies for our teachers and then student supplies so that they could participate in art and PE and things like that from home. And so this plan is outlined, is on our website, and this discussion is to meet the requirement in the grant and to let you know about the funding and to seek feedback on it.
Is there a day when that comment on that plan closes or we're finalizing that?
It is supposed to be open for 90 days, so it'll be probably through the end of the year.
Okay.
And a lot of this money was, you can spend it retroactively back to the beginning of the pandemic, and then you have all the way till September of 2024 to spend this money. So there's a very big time window. A lot of this money is already spent, but we are still required to seek feedback on it. We could reallocate it to the truth is we've spent far more than this grant is, and it just depends on how you allocate, the money. So we're still going to provide the summer school, and whether we call it part of this grant or not, it's more of a semantic.
Mhm.
And there are ways to efficiently spend the money, more efficiently spend the money than other ways. So there's some nuances in how we ask for it.
Any other questions for Mr. Khan on that American Rescue Plan, spending plans, plan? Sorry.
Just a quick question. So we already, assuming we meet the requirements, which you're doing, we're getting the 257,000. There's not like a chance they would say, oh no, there's only 200,000 for you. Like,
No.
we know that's the amount.
Yeah,
Okay.
this has been set aside for us by the Illinois State Board. So it's just they're waiting for us. We've already spent in excess of this amount. So I could ask for last year's summer school or last year's math specialist or last year's psychologist, but we actually saw the need to continue those things and for one more year. So I could also apply for it for next year's summer school or math specialist. So there's plenty of expenses for which to ask for reimbursement.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Jay and Tracy for, the grant writing process is not intuitive and how to figure out all the requirements that have been instituted since these monies started coming to school districts, and to work with the administrative team. Both of them have done an excellent job of just working with us to keep us informed of what we have and to make sure that we're providing for the needs of our students in a fiscally responsible way. There were opportunities to overspend in this, and we did not do that. We were very careful about our purchases. We were very thoughtful. We worked in conjunction with the teachers and the administrative team, and that's really Tracy and Jay working together to make sure that we have taken care of all the things that we need to do to take advantage of the money that's being provided. Even though it's not a lot, the requirements are a lot. And I appreciate their efforts to make sure that that happened for us.
Thank you. All right, item D under discussion is a board governance discussion. It's something that we have been talking about on the sidelines for quite a while. It has to do with who sits in these chairs, the president, the vice president, and the secretary. My term expires a year from April, so April of '23. I will not be running again. And it has the idea that perhaps it's time to swap out the presidency and other positions before my last year, so that I would sit in one of the other chairs for the remaining year of my term has come up and been discussed. So the idea of this conversation is kind of start with the big picture. Does the board in general, so this isn't a vote, it's just to give direction. Does the board in general think it's a good idea for either me to stay on as president through the remaining year, or to put somebody else in that position so that they could have the opportunity to learn while I'm here to help out through that final year? So that's kind of the biggest question. And then if we decide that it makes sense to swap that out, when do we make that effective? And then we drill down and we go to the who. But we don't have to do that part really until we have a change of governance meeting, which would probably be April or May, something like that. So I throw it out to you guys. I mean, what does everybody think about what is the right thing to do for the next year or so? I completely want to do what is right for the board and best for the future of the school and the board, and we'll work with whatever everybody thinks is appropriate. Make it happen.
I'll say that I do support the idea of you stepping down as board president and changing the governance. I think it's really, really beneficial for you to be here for one more year while there's a new president. There's a lot to it, and it's really helpful to have somebody with your experience leading, coaching, helping whoever is the new president, right? So I think that's a very beneficial idea for all of us, knowing that you won't run again to help with the transition.
I was gonna say exactly that.
Thank you. I agree too.
I agree too. I think that'd be very.
Nice summary.
I don't want you to leave.
I
I've
appreciate
tried.
that, but
We'll work on that later. I've been
3
trying.
terms is good.
There's a position, snacks.
3
on.
terms is.
So that seems like consensus on that idea. So that's good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm ready. And so does it make sense to do it? Normally we have board transition meeting, like my appointed term as president is for 2 years. So that would typically take me through the end of my term now. And we normally have board reorganization meetings at the very end of it. Typically the last meeting in April, I think is when we do it. And so this would be like a midterm, mid-appointment reorganization meeting. Does it make sense to do that in April so that we could start fresh in May with a full year left in the term, I think?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. So the next step is to put that on an agenda.
Yes.
We got to get it all scripted out because
Yep.
it's a very confusing. It's never an intuitive process about, you have to elect a president pro tem and a secretary pro tem and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a nomination process. We can talk about if you guys want to get more specific here, or we can just wait to the board to the reorganization meeting.
Well, now's the time to talk, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if we all sat around and talked about it, it would be something like an open meeting, correct?
Oh, no, right. I'm not suggesting we have
Voting or anything.
inappropriate
No,
meetings
no,
on
no.
the
I just
side.
mean like.
You're gonna go out with a bang, Mark?
It doesn't qualify for a closed session.
That's
is what
not
you're
what
trying
I
to
was-
say.
Right,
Yeah,
no,
I
and so it's, people can have, just to be clear, the Open Meetings Act does allow board members two or fewer, so by yourself. 2 board members to have conversations, but 3, being the majority of the quorum, cannot have a meeting.
Right.
So we can talk as a whole about the specifics of what that future governance looks like now, or we can wait to the day of the meeting, the day of the reorg meeting.
I don't see why we wouldn't talk about it right now.
I know.
Let's just do it.
What do y'all think?
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
Well, I, in general, I'm appreciative of the transition. I'm ready to transition out. And I think that we've had some good people in training for this role, and it's really not my call to make a recommendation. I think that really, I follow your guys' lead on that.
Should we ask who's interested?
Yeah.
And go from there.
I am not interested in being president. I will
Nor
say.
am I. Is there anyone who is?
Anybody at
I mean, I think we've discussed before, I would be interested, you know, I'm unsure if I'm going to run again at the end of my term, and mine expires when Mark does. I think I've mentioned that before. There's a lot of factors that will go into that between now and the next, 15, 16 months or 12, 13 months. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate the time, Mark, you spent on the board. And I think I've spoken one-on-one with all of you at some point in the past month or two. So that is something I would be willing to take on for now and see what happens for the next term.
Great.
Great. Is there anybody who'd be interested in vice president?
I have said that I would be interested in vice president, and I'm perfectly happy to be your right-hand woman or whatever. So I don't mind filling in. I certainly, enjoy being on the board. I enjoy doing the service for the community, but I do feel like that's a better fit for me.
Yeah, so this is just to be clear, this is just a carryover to the end of the next term when there's,
Right.
so there's
All
three of
our
us,
terms
our
expire
terms
at the same
expire in April of 23, right? And so
Mhm.
this would just be to carry us to that point. And so there's no guarantees beyond that, no locks beyond that. It depends on people running or not running. And
Or
But-
getting
but the-
elected.
or not even being elected. And those same people could, if they choose to, run, and if they win, can be appointed to president again. Just to be clear for the massive viewing audience, presidents are, the board governor, the governing board governance is appointed, not elected in school boards, as opposed to in the village, for example, where the president is elected. How about secretary? Does anybody have an interest in filling that role?
I have mentioned I enjoy using the microphone a lot, so I am happy to step up as secretary if no one else is interested as well. Uncontested.
I think we have some candidates who are going to do great. So thank you, everybody, for stepping up. And I think we have a plan, right? We're going to have a
We will get
reorg
it on,
meeting
yep,
at the end of
at
April.
the end of April. So it'll be the regular board meeting and we will get the agenda,
Great.
make sure we have it scripted out.
Any other questions or comments from anybody?
In April, as we vote or we appoint. is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
There'll be a
Perfect.
whole script.
It's
Yeah.
very scripted. we have to appoint a secretary, president,
President pro tem,
secretary
yep.
pro tem. And some, years ago, we even had our lawyer help. script this,
Intermittent
so-
ones
I
to
remember
elect the
to
new ones.
say the
so,
words.
yeah.
and-
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, great.
Mark, I just want to, I know we'll have a year worth of doing this, but I wanted to just thank you for your service to their community. I mean, 11 years on the school board is a long time to be on the school board. You don't have kids in the district anymore. And I think just your commitment to this district and the time you spent in, I think we've all learned something from. So knowing that you'll still be there for a year is comforting, and also knowing that you'll, beyond that, always be
Oh, yeah.
accessible too is comforting as well. But I mean, you've been on the board for 3 different superintendents and maybe more.
Technically 4.
Okay,
If you include
yeah.
the interim, yeah.
So, and a variety of issues you've led through. So just thank you from a parent's perspective for doing that for this many years.
Appreciate it. Thanks. And I'll be available after, I'm not moving. So at least I'm not aware that I'm moving. So if there's ever issues, I can help out or serve on committees or things like that too.
And I do just appreciate also the transition period for myself. Obviously, I work closely with the board president. And so it's helpful to me as well to have a year of transition because this is fairly new for me still as well. So thank you to both of you, all 3, 4 of you for
We will make it work.
that.
All right, great. Action items. 8A is the 2022-2023 final school calendar. You have the school calendar in your board packets. Any questions, comments, concerns about that?
Just again, our first day of school will be an early release on August 24th of 2022. We will still continue to have early release days on the first Wednesday of every month. The winter break and spring breaks align with the high school with one exception, which is March 17th of 2023 is a day that the high school has off that we have decided we would keep on our calendar as a day of attendance, which makes our last day June 7th. June 8th through the 14th would be emergency days. We are still talking about a plan for which of those days might be e-learning days and which of those days might be traditional days, but we're leaning towards using our e-learning days next year if we need to, so that we can preserve that last day of school as June 7th. And I have reached out to the high school. I know there's been some questions about whether or not the Lake Forest calendar, which we try to align with that for our families, is aligned with other districts in Lake County, which it isn't quite in terms of the breaks at all, which impacts not only our teachers, we have a lot of staff members with students in different districts, children in different districts, which is difficult for us. And so I've been working with Dr. Lennart and Dr. Montgomery on that, and also talked to the regional office superintendent just the other day about the calendar issue, and we'll be having a bigger discussion as county superintendents on that.
A teaching moment to future board presidents is, since this is a motion that does not involve money, we can do an all in favor kind of roll call instead of a roll call vote. So may I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 final school calendars presented by the administration?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion for the new calendar is passed, is approved. Item B, as we talked about in the discussion earlier today, is the approval of substitute pay adjustment. The board is asked to approve the proposed adjustment to the pay for substitute teachers, as discussed in our prior closed session and earlier today. Just to highlight that sub pay is currently at $110 a day. The proposal is to bring it to $125 a day for subs, excluding board members. And that the impact on the district is estimated or forecast to be about $12,000 a year. Any questions or comments, concerns about that? So may I have a motion to approve the substitute pay adjustment as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please, Ann.
Carrie Steinbach,
Yes.
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Anne Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
All right. Personnel report. Let's see. This week's personnel report. Pulling it up on my screen here and making it bigger. Let's see. We have 2 resignations. Audrey Zhurov, the assistant principal at the elementary school, is resigning effective June 30th for personal reasons. And Sydney Lichten, the first grade teacher at a first grade teacher at the elementary school, is effective June 7th, also for personal reasons. And then we have 1 non-renewal of licensed staff. That's for Seth Deutsch. It was a 7th and 8th grade ELA at the middle school. That is effective June 7th, and that is because the leave has ended. Any questions, comments about the personnel report for this month? So may I have a motion to approve the personnel report for March 8th, 2022 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Mark Barry.
Yes.
Anne Hill, yes.
Motion's approved. Item D is the consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the treasurer's report, the impress report. There is no impress report, the bills report, and the P card report. Would anybody like any of that withdrawn for discussion outside of the consent agenda? Not hearing anything. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 8th, 2022 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Amy Connell Donahue.
Yes.
Andy Duran.
Yes.
Anne Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
All right, the motion's approved. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal of part-time teachers. This is something we do every year. This is an annual approval. We do this because under Bill 7, all teachers must be placed in a group for reduction in force purposes. All part-time teachers are placed in a group 1 and do not have the right to be automatically renewed, but instead are released and rehired back based upon need. 2022 is the 7th year that we have done this. So now I have to read a rather lengthy resolution. So be patient with me while I pull it up and read through it. All right, resolution dismissal of part-time teachers for reasons other than reduction in force. Whereas the following teachers are employed on a part-time basis during the 2020-2021 school year, have worked less than full workdays or less than full work weeks for the current year. And whereas the Board of Education has determined that the part-time teachers named herein shall not be reemployed for the 2021-2022 school year pursuant to section 24-11 of the school code for reasons other than reduction to force. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lake Bluff School District number 65, Lake County, Illinois, that section 1, the following named part-time teachers shall not be reemployed for the,
Probably should be for the 22-23 school year, I think. Shouldn't it? Yes, so.
okay, the following named part-time teachers shall not be reemployed for the 2022-2023 school year. Ann Colmeyer Dahlen. The president and secretary of the board are authorized and directed to give the teachers a written notice of dismissal by certified mail, return receipt requested at least 45 days before the end of the school year. A copy of this notice is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated by reference. The superintendent or designee shall also deliver a copy of the notice to the teachers by first-class mail and personally with a signature receipt. A copy of the receipt is attached as Exhibit B and incorporated by reference. This resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its passage. So we will make, I think we can do this, make a note on the copy that we sign that it changes the year and we can initial it.
Yeah.
So with those changes, may I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Could you take a roll call vote, please?
Amy Connell Donahue,
Yes.
Andy Duran,
Yes.
Ann Hill, yes. Mark Barry.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach,
Yes.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Motion is approved. All right, so we just need to, before we sign off on it, we need to change the date on it. All right, item 10 was a FOIA request. We did receive a fairly lengthy FOIA request that I imagine took you guys a fair amount of time to put together, right? And if anybody's interested, the full details of which are in the board, there's been a lot of it going around. People are asking about insurance coverage basically for board members. It's kind of politically based, but it is what it is. It takes a lot of resources from our administrators, time and money to fill out some of these things. Then finally, we end the meeting with public comments. Public comments are open to the board or anybody in the audience. Or if we have any Zoom hands raised or written public comment that's been entered. Nothing. Thanks. Anybody on the board? Thank you, everybody. We're good, right? Anything else you need to add?
No, nothing.
All right,
else.
so at 8:14, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.